Hey, night listener. Tonight we enter the shadows. The rain hasn't stopped for hours, and neither has the scratching in your mind. Through a streaked window, dim street lights bleed amber across slick pavement. Somewhere, a bottle rolls against concrete. Echoes rise like ghosts in alleyways. No one dares walk after midnight. Your reflection in the dark glass is just a blur now because you've stopped recognizing it. If this story found you, maybe it's because you've been followed too. So, before we vanish into this mystery, like the video and subscribe only if you can handle the truth buried beneath the lies. Let me know in the comments. Are you drawn to the truth, the thrill, or the justice? Now lock your doors, take a deep breath, and follow me into the dark. You're staring at the photograph again. You shouldn't still have it. Not after everything. Not after you burned the rest, buried the glove, wiped the phone clean, and cleaned the drain twice. But somehow, this single photo survived. Tucked deep in the spine of a hollowed out book you don't remember opening, it shows his face, and worse, his eyes. They aren't smiling, though he was when you took it. No, now they look wrong, staring out of frame, like he saw something over your shoulder that you never did. Or worse, like he saw what you were about to become. You flipped the photo over, blank, no date, no message. But the edges are worn in that way that comes from obsession. You've handled it too much. You've told yourself you keep it because you need to remember. But that's not it. You keep it because you don't believe it's the only copy. You knew, but pretended you didn't. That's how this all started. The knocking on the door comes too soft to be urgent, but too slow to be normal. You freeze. No one visits this late. Not since the story aired. Not since the town decided they'd already heard enough. You move quietly, footsteps padded by guilt more than carpet. You glance at the mirror in the hallway and it's cracked, not shattered. Just one vertical split, right down the middle of your reflection. You never noticed that before. Symbolic maybe. Or maybe something's trying to tell you your story won't stay whole for long. At the door, no one's there. Just a single envelope on the mat. No name, no address. You bring it inside, hands shaking even though you're not cold. You open it. Inside only one thing. A copy of the same photograph. Except in this version, his eyes are closed. And suddenly, you know exactly what that means. You buried the evidence, but someone else dug it up. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones, and you were always the quiet one. Somewhere, a clock ticks, the one in the hallway you always swore you'd replace because the sound made you anxious. But now you're grateful for it, because without it, this silence might make you scream. You sit in the dark, the two photos side by side. Open eyes, closed eyes, two versions of the same truth, or two lies wrapped in memory. Which came first? What if you've been the suspect all along? It's not the murder that haunts you. It's the fact that he smiled before it happened, and smiled at you. Rain on the witness window. A neighbor claims they never heard a thing. But why leave the porch light on? You step into the kitchen, barefoot, chilled, still holding the two photographs. Your fingers leave faint moisture on the edge of the counter. The tap drips in perfect time with the hallway clock, and you realize you never fixed that either. Across the street, there's a light on. Second window, third floor. Mrs. Denby, the widow with the orchids and the antique wind chimes that haven't moved in 3 years. She said she didn't hear anything that night. She said it like she practiced it. But you remember her porch light. It was on. It was always on when she was watching. That warm, yellow glow wasn't for ambiance. It was her excuse, her alibi, and maybe, Her warning. You slide the photo into a drawer you never use, the one with batteries that don't work and manuals for appliances you threw out last winter. The place forgotten, things go to rot. You pour yourself coffee you don't need. It tastes like dirt and anxiety. Your phone buzzes. Unknown number. You don't answer. You never do. It buzzes again, then a third time, and then it stops. The screen lights up with a voicemail 0002. Just 2 seconds. You hit play. No voice, just breathing, low, controlled. And you swear you hear rain in the background, but it's not raining anymore. You shut the phone off, take another sip, walk to the window, and pull the curtain aside, just enough to see without being seen. Mrs. Denby's window, still lit, but now she's at it, standing there, perfectly still, staring right at you, and in her hand, raised just enough to be unmistakable, is a photograph. Not the same one, but you know that angle. She took it from across the street. You close the curtain and breathe through your teeth. It's happening again. The story isn't buried. It's just been watching, waiting for you to believe your own version long enough. You knew, but pretended you didn't. There's a knock on the back door. No one ever uses the back door. You hesitate. You count to 5, then 10. It's silent again, but that silence, it feels like someone's still there. You crack the door open a sliver, just wide enough for the wind to answer. Nothing, no one, except a single wet footprint on the mat, barefoot, men's size, heading away, not toward. He came here. He stood there, and he didn't come in. It was never about the truth. It was about control. That's when you notice the symbol. On the glass, just above the doorknob, a smudge, grease from a thumb, maybe, but in the shape of a spiral. Perfect, slow, deliberate, not accidental. And you remember it, because he used to draw it in his notebook. The notebook you burned, page by page. The one with the initials D.H. scratched into the inside cover. You stand there longer than you should, letting the cold whisper up your spine. Your heart is a drum line of regret and muscle memory. Someone is telling you he's not finished. You pick up your phone, open your text thread, scroll past the lies you told your sister, the excuses you fed your therapist, and stop on a name you swore you'd delete, Detective Jonah Mercer. You type one word, why, but you don't hit send, because maybe you don't want answers. Maybe you want to keep lying. What if the truth is worse than the memory? What if the real secret isn't what you did, but why you felt nothing when you did it? The red gloves in your drawer. You find something you swore you threw away, and it smells like him. You never meant to open the drawer. You were reaching for a lighter habit, more than need, when your fingers found wool instead. Thick, dense, and cold. The color floods your eyes before your brain catches up. Crimson. Not quite blood, not quite rust. That particular red that stains intentions long after it fades from fabric. The gloves, his gloves, you threw them into the river. You remember the weight of them soaked through, sinking beneath the surface. You remember the sound of wet thud against stone. You watch the current carry them into shadow. So why are they here? You hold them like they might twitch, one palm to the other. There's something about the texture gritty, but not from dirt. No, it's the salt. Salt and something sour, like the gloves have been sitting somewhere humid, fermenting memory. They smell like him. That mix of clove cigarettes and cedar and something else, something cheap, something sharp. The scent he left in your car, on your sheets, in the gaps between what you said and what you meant. You knew, but pretended you didn't. The gloves are folded neatly, Not bald, not discarded, arranged like a gift or a message. You check the drawer again. There's more. A small scrap of receipt paper, torn at the edge. No logo, just ink, smudged by time or water. 3 words, scrawled in a hand you hoped never to see again. You're not done. Your stomach flips, an organ in free fall, because he's dead. You watched him die. You were there. You helped. But the gloves are here. The note is fresh, and now you feel it again. Him, in the room, behind your left shoulder. That sense of breath on your neck when no one's there. You move slowly, like sudden guilt could trigger an alarm. The living room window is cracked, just a sliver. Rain dripping onto the sill. You didn't open it. You wouldn't have opened it. And there, caught in the corner of the curtain, the torn thread. Red wool. Someone's been inside. You glance at the hallway mirror. The crack now forks. 2 splits. Like veins. Like something is growing through it. You run your hand along the gloves. Inside the right one. Your fingers catch on something stiff. You pull it out, a photograph. Not of him. Of you. Sleeping. Face turned slightly. Taken from the foot of the bed. You recognize the pattern on the pillowcase. You only ever used that one the week he died. Someone's been collecting you. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You light a match. Just one. Not for heat. Not for visibility. For power. But the flame flickers too hard. You watch it lick the edge of the photograph before dropping it in the sink. You don't burn the gloves. Not yet. Some things, they need to be buried more than once. You shove them back in the drawer and slam it shut. But the sound echoes wrong, like something else close to. In the house, down the hall. You step into the dark and feel it again, that you're no longer the one watching. You're the one being waited on. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. But you can't lie to the gloves. Not anymore. His final message wasn't for him. The voicemail was meant for you. But someone else picked it up first. The gloves stay locked away, but your thoughts don't. You carry them with you, one in each hand. Invisible but heavy. Every creak in the floor. Every buzz of the phone tightens the knot at the base of your spine. You wake at 4:08 a.m. again, always the same time. No sound, no dream, just the eerie quiet before guilt becomes memory. You check your phone. One new voicemail, timestamp, PNG 17 a.m. You hesitate. Your finger hovers above the play button like it might burn you. Then you press. It begins with static. Then a voice, not his, not yours, but someone whispering just below clarity. You hear your name, not shouted, not begged, stated. Then the whisper. She doesn't know. She never knew. And then silence. Your breath catches. You don't recognize the voice, but you know the tone. Cold, familiar, like someone who's spoken to you before, but only ever behind glass. You play it again. You rewind, isolate. The same 2 lines, but the background, it's not empty. There's a sound in the distance. Slow, hollow, mechanical. A bell, a metronome. Tick, tick, tick. You know that sound. He used to use one when he played piano. Said it helped keep the chaos in line. And then it hits you. That wasn't just background noise. It was a message in itself. He used to say, when it ticks, I'm thinking. When it stops, I've decided. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You check your saved voicemails. Scroll to the one from 2 years ago. His last message. The one you kept for reasons you lied to yourself about. You play it. He's breathless, pained, laughing, but not joyfully. "I figured it out," he says. "It's not me, is it? It was never me. It was you." That one line again, twisted into something damning. She doesn't know. She never knew. He knew what you were. Maybe before you did. You never told the detective about that message. You never told anyone, because it wasn't meant for him. It was meant for you. And someone else picked it up first. You scroll your contacts, hands cold, eyes blurred from something between fear and memory. You find his sister's number, Mel. You haven't spoken since the funeral, since she said, "You didn't cry. Why didn't you cry?" You didn't answer then. You wouldn't know what to say now. The voicemail notification disappears. Gone. Not archived. Not saved. Gone. You didn't delete it. Someone else has access. Someone is reminding you that what you buried wasn't enough. You go to the drawer again, pull out the gloves, feel the weight. You press them to your face. They still smell like him. And now you remember the last words he ever said in person. Not "I love you," not "I'm sorry," but "You'll hear from me again." You had laughed. You thought it was theatrical, tragic, a line for effect, but he meant it. Not metaphorically, literally. You check the mirror. The crack has split again. 3 veins now, like a spider web spun from guilt. You take the mirror off the wall, flip it over, carved into the back, in a pressure you feel rather than see. You're still listening. What if the silence was never about peace? What if the silence was just him, waiting for your guard to fall? It was never about the truth. It was about control. Everyone lies, especially the dead. Your story has too many versions. You've told the truth so many different ways. You've forgotten the real one. The detective asked you only once, what happened that night? You gave him the version that fit best. Clean lines, short timeline, no gaps. But that wasn't the first version you told. Not even the second. There was the one you gave the paramedic, wide-eyed and trembling, before the sirens had even stopped echoing. You said you found him like that. Then there was the story for the officer who walked you to the cruiser. You tripped. You didn't mean to. He pushed first. That time, there were tears, real ones, or convincing enough. And there was the version you whispered to Mel at the wake, when she asked how long it had been going on. We were trying again. You told her. He said he wanted to fix things. You knew, but pretended you didn't. None of it adds up anymore. Too many pieces, shaped to fit too many puzzles. And now you can't even remember what you left out on purpose and what was just lost. There's a scratching sound in your walls tonight. Not the usual settling, not the pipes. It moves, room to room, slow, purposeful, like someone dragging a nail behind the drywall, carving a map you can't see. You get out of bed, barefoot again. The hallway is colder than it should be. You run your fingers along the mirror. Crack number 4. It's starting to curve now, like a noose tightening around your reflection. You don't speak your thoughts anymore, because they no longer sound like you. They sound like him, whispered just behind your tongue, waiting to leak out if you're not careful. The police files are still in your closet. You weren't supposed to keep copies, but you made them that first week when everything was noise and flashlight beams and pitying eyes. You lay the files out on the kitchen floor. Photos, diagrams, timeline printouts with red circles and underlines. That's when it happens. The timestamp on the corner of the scene photo. You stare at it. Blink. Stare again. It doesn't match the version you told. You said it was 10:12 p.m., but the photo says 9:43, and in the corner of the photo, barely visible, the red gloves. Sitting on the arm of the chair, you told them you'd never seen them before. But there they are, in your own living room, before he died. You feel like the house is tilting, or maybe it's your mind trying to shift gravity. You close the files, fold them back into a neat, shameful bundle, but a single sheet slips out and flutters beneath the table. You reach for it. It's a transcribed interview. You hadn't read it in years. Interviewee Denby. Ruth witness statement. I saw her standing outside the house. Just before the scream, she wasn't wearing a coat. That line, you remember it. You raged at it. You said you were inside. You said you never left the house. But now you can't be sure. Because the coat you swore you wore that night, it's missing. Gone from the closet. Gone from your memory. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You take the files to the sink. You consider fire. But instead you turn on the tap. Let the paper soak. Warp. Dissolve. Let the evidence drown like you tried to make the guilt drown. But one page refuses to disintegrate. The first photo. His face. Still staring. Still smiling. But this time his mouth is open. It wasn't open in the original. You'd swear on your life. And you just might. What if you're not remembering wrong? What if something or someone is rewriting it for you? Everyone lies, especially the ones who think they're telling the truth. Her smile was too still. At the funeral, the mother's smile lingered too long, like she knew something. You haven't thought about the funeral in a while. You've avoided it, skipped past it in your memory like a radio station playing a song that makes your chest hurt. But tonight, it comes back. You remember the lilies, too many. Their scent made the air syrupy, like grief had a weight and a flavor. You stood at the edge of the aisle, not in the family row, not in the friend row either, somewhere between relevance and suspicion. And then there was her, his mother. She wore navy, not black. Her hands were clasped so tightly that the skin around her knuckles was white. But what you remember most was her smile, too still, too calm, the kind that doesn't come from peace. It comes from knowing. You were mid-step when she caught your eye. Didn't blink, didn't look away, just smiled like she'd already decided your role in all this and didn't need the court to confirm it. You remember the tremor in your spine, how it moved up, not down, as if something was rising inside you, not falling apart. Back then, you told yourself she was grieving. People grieve strangely. Maybe she wasn't smiling. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe your guilt painted it on her face. But now, as the memories return, out of order, shuffled like a deck you didn't deal, you realize something. She never asked you what happened. Not once. Everyone else did. Detectives, friends, his sister, even his co-workers, in hushed texts and awkward glances. But not her, not his mother, because maybe she didn't need to ask. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You open your closet now, looking for the navy coat you wore to the service, still wrapped in the dry cleaner's plastic. You pull it down, unzip the bag. In the left pocket, something sharp. You reach in, slowly, a needle, just one, and wrapped around it, a thin, knotted thread. Red. You sit on the edge of the bed. The weight of the needle in your palm feels heavier than its size. You recognize it instantly. He used to sew, said it helped him focus, fixed his own buttons, mended his own sleeves. You teased him for it once, and he'd said, I prefer my wounds closed by hand. And then there was the symbol. You flipped the needle's base, scratched into the metal a spiral. He's been leaving pieces of himself in your life, like breadcrumbs you swore you burned. The phone rings. You let it ring 5 times before answering. You don't speak, just listen. Silence. Then a breath. Shallow. Female. Then the voice. He told me you'd lie. You freeze. Mouth open. But no air comes. And he told me to wait. Until you came apart. The call disconnects. You check the number. Blocked. Of course. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You pulled the photo of the funeral from your keepsake box. You were supposed to give it to Mel. You never did. In the background, barely visible, you see his mother, smiling. But now that you're looking closer, you see something else. Her hand, on the back of your chair, holding something. A needle and thread. You blink. Look again. It's gone. Everyone lies, especially the ones who stitch their grief into silence. What if she's not just mourning him? What if she's continuing what he started? A key that opens nothing, hidden in his coat pocket. A key with no door. Or so you thought. You still have the coat. You told yourself you kept it for closure, or nostalgia, or as evidence just in case. But really, you kept it because you were afraid to let it go, as if throwing it out would give it permission to come back. It's folded in a vacuum-sealed bag in the attic. You haven't unzipped that plastic since the night you found it tossed over the armchair, soaked in rain and something darker. You break the seal. The smell that hits you is old metal and rotting cedar. Familiar. Wrong. You search the pockets. One crumpled tissue. A paperclip bent into a spiral, and something heavy near the bottom hem tucked into the inner lining. You cut the seam open carefully. Out falls a key, plain, unmarked, steel, with no grooves to indicate which lock it serves. Just one detail etched faintly on its bow F0. Not a room number, not a model, just a code or a message. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You hold it in your hand, feel the cool weight. It doesn't belong to your house, not to his, not to any place you remember together. And yet, something about it makes you feel like it's already been in a door. Recently, you check the hallway mirror. The fifth crack has arrived. It splits from the lower right now, climbing into the center like something crawling toward your reflection's throat. You press the key against the glass, and for a moment, your reflection vanishes, just yours. His mother's words echo behind your ribs. He told me you'd lie. You don't know if the key fits a place, or a time, or just a part of yourself you've been avoiding. You try to shake it off, but when you open your bedroom closet to hide the coat again, something topples from the shelf. A box, old, wooden, carved with a design you don't recognize until you turn it in the light. A spiral. Your stomach tightens. You don't remember ever seeing this box before, let alone placing it in your house. The key in your hand slides into the lock without resistance. The click is soft, too soft. Inside the box, just one thing. A cassette tape, label F0, final. You don't own a tape player, but you know who does. Detective Jonah Mercer. You sit down, slow. Think about what this means. If the box was here, someone left it. And if someone left it, they were close enough to know where you'd find it. Close enough to know you'd open it. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You scroll to Mercer's name again. Hover over the call button. But something inside stops you. Not fear, shame. Because the only reason you haven't called yet is the same reason you haven't confessed. You don't want the story to be over. Because if it ends, then it has to be true. And if it's true, then you're not the victim anymore. You're the villain. Everyone lies, especially the ones who think they had no choice. You pocket the key, slide the box beneath your bed. Sleep doesn't come. But at 3:17, something else does. A soft thud from the kitchen. You rise, heart knifing through your chest, and find the front door wide open. No wind, no footprints, no broken lock, just the silence of someone who's already been inside. The mirror, cracked down the middle. You see yourself clearly for the first time, and it isn't who you thought. You close the front door slowly, gently, like it might shatter if you press too hard. No sign of a break-in, no muddy footprints, no marks on the handle, just a door left open as if someone wanted you to notice. Not panic, you lean against it, trying to breathe, but your lungs feel full of fog. You listen for the metronome, the tick, that steady rhythm that somehow replaced your own heartbeat. Nothing. You turn toward the hallway, and the mirror greets you. The newest crack has arrived. This time, it's not subtle. A jagged line, straight through the center of your face. It splits your left eye in half, reflects two different expressions, one wide, wild, on the verge of confession, the other calm, calculated, watching. You reach out and touch the surface. The glass is warm. You don't remember the mirror ever feeling warm before. And then you say it, not aloud but inside. A name, his name, David. You haven't said it in weeks, maybe months. You've been avoiding it like it holds a curse. But tonight, it lands softly, like he's listening, like he's waiting. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You step back, study yourself, your face, pale, your hair pulled back like you always did when you wanted to feel in control. You look familiar but not safe, not to yourself, because now you see it. Not just the fear, not just the lies. You see the wanting. The moment from that night, you never said out loud. You didn't push him, not at first. You waited for him to fall, and when he did, you didn't try to catch him. You remember the look in his eyes, not fear, relief. You'd both known it was coming. He just didn't think it would be from you. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You walk back into the bedroom. The cassette box under your bed hums in your mind like a forgotten lullaby. You pull it out again, turn it over. Written in tiny lettering beneath the label, "Play me when you finally look." It wasn't meant for the police. It wasn't meant for Mercer. It was meant for you. You call a cab. You don't trust your hands on the wheel tonight. You don't trust the road to keep still. You hold the box on your lap like a confession. The driver doesn't speak, just eyes you through the mirror like they always do. But tonight, you wonder what they see. At the all-night pawn shop, the clerk doesn't even blink when you ask for a cassette player. He hands you one. Still works, still ticks. You sit in your car, press play. The tape hisses, then a click, like a record being set into place. Then his voice, clear, crisp. If you're hearing this, it means you're finally ready to admit you didn't stop me. Your hands clench the steering wheel, knuckles blooming white. You didn't push, but you let me break. And that's worse, isn't it? You bite your lips so hard, it tastes like metal. I gave you the rope. You tied it. Silence. Then, the last piece you buried was yourself. Click. That's it. You eject the tape. Hold it in your palm. It's warm, like the mirror, like the gloves, like breath. You look up at the rearview mirror, and for the first time you don't recognize the woman staring back, but you do recognize the smile, and that's what terrifies you. Everyone lies, especially the ones who thought they were only trying to survive. You hear his name, whispered at night. The calls stopped weeks ago, but your phone still buzzes at 3:17 a.m. You've turned the phone off every night since the tape, but it doesn't matter, because even with the battery drained, and the screen black. You still feel it. 3:17 am. The vibration starts low, like a purr, deep inside the mattress. Then it grows sharper, like something humming beneath your skin. You bolt upright, breath caught between a scream and a name you won't say again. Your phone lies flat on the nightstand, dark, dead, but it buzzes once more, then stops. You pick it up, cold, unresponsive, not even the faintest glow of a waking screen. You knew, but pretended you didn't. The hallway mirror reflects your silhouette. You're nothing but a shadow, now thin and unfinished. A figure drawn in pencil, waiting to be erased. You turn on every light in the house, one by one. Kitchen, bathroom, living room. But light doesn't fix it. Light doesn't chase it out. It only sharpens the corners, makes the shadows bolder. The voicemail icon flashes on your screen. You blink. The phone's still powered off, still not responding to touch, but that red dot pulses like a heartbeat. You press the home button. Nothing. Still. The message waits. You leave the house. There's a bench 2 blocks down, under a broken street lamp that buzzes like it's holding secrets. You sit there, box clutched in your lap, gloves in your coat pocket, phone gripped so tightly your palm sweats beneath it. And then you hear it. His name, not spoken, exhaled, a whisper on the back of the wind, threaded between your heartbeat and the distant whine of tires across wet asphalt. David. You spin. No one. You turn back. A woman stands under the far street lamp. Long coat. Head tilted like she's trying to remember your face. She doesn't wave, doesn't move. But you know. It's Mel. You rise, unsure. The last time you saw her, she was sobbing behind a church pew. That version of her is gone now. She steps forward. And then she says it. He told me you'd end up here. Your mouth opens, closes, no sound. He said you'd try to forget, that you'd hide it all behind grief and fiction. But you can't rewrite what's already been bled into the page. You shake your head. You don't understand. I understand everything. Her voice is steel now, forged. She walks closer, steps precise, rehearsed, like she's been waiting years for this scene. The night before he died, she says, he called me, said you looked at him like you wanted to vanish, like you needed him to go first so you could breathe again. You back up. He loved you, she says, and you loved the version of him you could control. You feel the gloves in your pocket, heavy, cold. He left something else, she says, something only I was supposed to give you. When you were ready, she hands you a folded note. The paper is soft, old, like it's been read 100 times. You open it. 3 lines, handwritten. If she's reading this, I forgive you. But that doesn't mean you're innocent. I just don't want you to lie about it forever. Tell the truth, even if it kills the version of you that survived. The signature at the bottom, a spiral, drawn slow, deliberate, familiar. You collapse onto the bench. Mel sits beside you. You buried him, she says, softer now. But what haunted you wasn't what you did. You turned to her. It was what you let happen. It was never about the truth. It was about control. Your phone buzzes in your hand. 3:17 I. Again. This time, the screen lights up. One word on display. Look. The victim's eyes were still open. You see them every time you close yours. That isn't guilt. It's memory. You don't remember closing your eyes, but you remember opening them again on the bench. Alone, Mel is gone. No trace of her footsteps. No note. No voice. Just the cold imprint of truth still pressing into your palm. You stare at your phone. The word look glows on the screen, though no app is open. It isn't a notification, it's a command. The spiral you traced with your finger on the glass now feels burned into your skin. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You go home in a daze. Street lights smear across your vision. The wind sounds like it's breathing again, like it's carrying names you've been avoiding. Inside, the house is darker than it should be. Every bulb seems dimmer, as if your shame has weight, and it's sinking the voltage. You drop your phone on the kitchen counter, but it doesn't stop buzzing the 17. Again, but the clock reads 4:06. The screen flickers, then goes black. You reach into the drawer. The gloves are gone. Panic. Real. Immediate. You rip the drawer out, toss it to the floor. Nothing underneath. Nowhere they could have slipped. Someone was here. Again. And then the hallway mirror. Cracked in full now. A spider web. A shattered memory. But it reflects something that stops your breath. You, standing in the mirror, and behind you, him. Not him. Not a full figure. A glimpse. A fragment. Just the eye. Wide. Familiar. Disappointed. You spin. Nothing there. But those eyes, they stay with you, burned into your retinas, like the after-image of a flash you didn't see coming. That look. It wasn't anger. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. Like he saw the end coming and understood it. Like he expected it from you. You stagger to the bathroom and splash water on your face. It doesn't help, because when you close your eyes now, you see his, every time, open, glassy, locked on you, because you never closed there. You should have, but you didn't, because some part of you wanted them to stay open, to watch, to witness, to haunt. You sit on the edge of the tub, dripping, the floor cold beneath your feet. The box still sits in your lap. You open it again. The cassette is back inside. You hadn't put it there. Your hand shakes as you load it into the player. The hiss, then his voice. They say the eyes are the last thing to die. You choke on breath, even after the heart stops, even after the mind gives up. They keep watching, just long enough to know. The tape clicks, rewinds itself, plays again. The eyes are the last thing to die. You slam the stop button, but the sound continues, coming from the walls now, from the mirror, from inside the house. You scream. You're not sure whether it's from fear or recognition. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You look down at your hands, wet, trembling, but now there's something else. Red fibers between your fingers. Wool. The gloves. Back again. But this time they're warm. You drop them. They land with a wet smack. You step back, trip. The mirror hums behind you, crackling. The reflection still shows you, but the eyes staring back aren't yours anymore. Everyone lies, especially the ones who thought they could forget. The stranger at your door knows things. She asks one question, and it's the only one you don't know how to answer. You don't remember falling asleep, but the knock wakes you. 3 soft raps, not urgent, not random, like the hand behind them knows exactly what it's doing and why. You sit up. The gloves are gone again. So is the cassette. The mirror, still cracked, but now it reflects something else. Your bedroom door, slightly ajar. You never leave it open at night. You grab the flashlight, not because you need to see, because you need to feel armed. You approach the front door slowly, carefully. This time you don't check the peephole. You already know it won't matter. You open it. A woman stands in the hallway, mid-30s, Gray hoodie, rain-soaked hair, pulled into a knot, eyes too steady, like they've been here before. She doesn't smile, doesn't blink. She just says, "What did he whisper?" You stare at her. Your mouth opens. Nothing comes, because you don't remember. Or maybe you never wanted to. "Excuse me," you say. Voice barely yours. She tilts her head. A motion too slow to be casual. "What did he whisper when he died?" You step back. She doesn't follow. Doesn't need to. "I don't know what you're talking about," but the lie sticks in your throat like static. She nods once, almost sympathetic. Then she reaches into her coat pocket and holds something out. A playing card. You hesitate, then take it. It's blank. Just a single spiral, drawn in red ink across the center. Back when he was unraveling before the final night, he used to leave these in strange places. In the refrigerator, between pages of books, inside your purse. He said it was his signature. Said spirals helped him remember things, because when you spiral, he said, you always end up back where you started. You look up, she's already halfway down the block. You call out, but she doesn't turn around. The card is damp, but the ink doesn't smudge. On the back, in tiny block letters, he never whispered your name. You close the door, slowly. Let that sink in. He never said your name. Not when he fell, not when the light went out of his eyes, not in the tape, not in the note Mel gave you. Never. You knew, but pretended you didn't, because the silence wasn't empty. It was deliberate. He withheld you, erased you, and that stings worse than guilt. That confirms the thing you feared the most, that you weren't the victim. You weren't even the villain. You were irrelevant. You drop the card. It lands face up. The spiral seems to spin without moving. You remember the question again. What did he whisper? Not your name, but something. A word you almost heard. And now it comes back. He said, again. Just that. Again. You stagger backward into the living room. Sit down. Let the weight of it crash through you. He wasn't dying. He was reliving. It wasn't the first time for him, and maybe not for you either. You glance at the family photo on the mantel. It's shifted, tilted toward the window, and behind the glass, a reflection. Not yours, his, staring at you, but only in the frame. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You pick up the card again. The ink has bled into your skin. The spiral now lives in your fingerprint. Everyone lies, especially the ones who answer the door. His laughter was edited out. The police video cuts too clean. Why erase his last moment of joy? You weren't supposed to have a copy of the footage. It was evidence. Suppressed, redacted, too sensitive for release. But Mercer owed you once, before everything tilted sideways, before your name became a whisper in the department, back when they still thought you were innocent, or at least convenient. You boot the old laptop, the one that's never touched the internet, the one with the cracked corner and the busted left hinge. It opens with a wheeze, just like you do now. The file's there, labeled plainly, Bodycam 0429 redacted, MP4, April 29th, the night it happened, the night he happened. You don't click immediately. Your finger hovers, trembles, pauses. You knew, but pretended you didn't. The screen flickers as the video begins. It's grainy, distorted by motion blur and the frantic breathing of the officer. Flashlight beams cut across wet grass and twisted shadows. And then, there he is, David, slumped near the edge of the ravine, blood on his shirt, one hand raised, not reaching for help, waving, like he's saying goodbye, or worse, see you soon. You pause it, stare into the frame. There's something wrong, something missing. The sound, no ambient noise, no wind, no insects, no footsteps, just a hollow silence under the officer's breathing. You scrub backward, right before the moment David collapses. There's a cut, a hard edit, like someone took a knife to the truth and trimmed off the edge. And you know what should be there, because you remember it. He laughed, right before he fell, right before it all went wrong. He laughed. It wasn't mocking, it wasn't bitter, it was light, like a moment of freedom, right before the darkness swallowed him whole, and they cut it out. Why? Because it made him human, because it made it harder to convict the wrong version of the story, or because it suggested he knew that he wanted this, that maybe you weren't the only one letting go. You rewind again, slower now, frame by frame. Just before the cut, his lips move, not random. He mouths a word. You squint, rewind, rewatch. Again, same as before, same as the whisper. Not your name. A request, a loop, a curse. The laptop glitches. The screen goes black for a moment, then flickers back on. But now it's your face, frozen on the screen, not David's. Your mouth, open, mid-sentence, eyes wide, not in fear, in shock. You slam the lid shut. The screen won't turn off. Your reflection in the gloss split by a diagonal line of light. Another spiral drawn across the darkened monitor. You rush to the hallway. The mirror is cracked in a new pattern, now centered on your heart. The phone vibrates in your pocket. No number, no screen, just vibration. You don't answer. You can't. But it doesn't stop. And now, you hear it not from the phone, but from the laptop still buzzing behind you. Laughter, his, uncut, unedited, alive, and beneath it, a whisper, half sung. You can rewind all you want, but you'll never hear the real ending until you stop lying. You fall to your knees because you know what they edited out. Not just the laughter, but the part where he forgave you. And that, somehow, is the worst cut of all. It was never about the truth. It was about control. Everyone lies, especially the ones who delete the laughter and leave only the blood. The wrong person took the fall. Justice came too fast. Convenient, isn't it? Almost like someone helped it along. You remember the trial only in fragments now, like a room you walked through while sedated, phrases whispered through tissue paper lips, legalese so dry it turned truth into dust, cameras outside, coffee inside, long pauses where the word motive floated in the air like fog, never quite landing on you, because it never had to. Someone else caught it before it touched down. Cameron Ford, an old friend of his, barely that, more like a long shadow. David never shook. Cameron had a record, minor things, bar fights, unpaid fines, that one barista he allegedly threatened for forgetting the cinnamon. But he was loud, angry, the kind of man who leaves fingerprints on everything, including guilt. They arrested him 2 days after the incident. They said it was a confession, said they had witnesses, said they had a motive, but you never believed it. Not because Cameron was innocent, not because he didn't want to hurt David, but because he didn't do it. You knew. You watched it happen. You remembered the scream, the fall, the stillness that followed, and you remembered one more thing. David said your name, not to call for help, not to accuse. He said it like a question, like he didn't know how to finish the sentence. You, then silence, and somehow you let everyone else write the ending. You sit on the floor now, sifting through the envelope marked case materials, sealed, inside the transcript. the officer's report, and one line you always skimmed over until now. The defendant showed no sign of remorse. They weren't talking about Cameron. They were talking about you. It was buried in a witness statement. A line overheard. Something Mel said when she didn't know she was being recorded. "She's too calm," Mel told the detective. "That's not how people look when someone they love dies." You hear it now, in the silence of your living room, the creak of the floorboards beneath memory. You didn't flinch at the verdict, didn't cry. You nodded like it made sense, because it did. Convenience often does. The system chewed up Cameron and spat out a conviction so quick it felt like premeditation. Maybe not his, maybe not even yours. Maybe someone else planned this long before the final night. Maybe David. You knew, but pretended you didn't. The phone buzzes again. A voicemail from a blocked number. You hesitate, then play it. It's Mel. He left something else. "I didn't want to give it to you until I was sure." Pause. "I'm not sure, but I'm tired of holding it." Click. Your doorbell rings. You don't move. Just stare at it. 3 beats. Then the mail slot opens. Something drops through. You walk to the door slowly. An envelope. Your name scrawled in black marker. The same handwriting David used to use when labeling his mixtapes. You open it with shaking hands. Inside a Polaroid of you, sitting across from David at a cafe, laughing. And behind you, just barely in frame, is Cameron, watching. The date stamped in the corner, 2 weeks before the murder. Except you don't remember being there. Not with both of them. Not on that day. You flip the photo over. On the back, what if he framed you to frame him? You drop the envelope, because now everything feels like a loop. You never noticed. David was spiraling, but not in chaos. In design. What if this was always the plan? Not to die, but to orchestrate the aftermath. It was never about the truth. It was about control. And the most controlled story is the one where you think you're innocent, until it's too late to change your mind. Everyone lies, especially the ones who leave the wrong man behind bars just long enough for you to start believing it. Everyone forgets the stopwatch. The timeline was perfect until you found the stopwatch, still ticking in the basement. The Polaroid burns in your hand long after you've dropped it. You try to tell yourself it's just a coincidence, a misdated print, a glitch in memory. But you already know better, because the spiral isn't just a symbol anymore. It's a pattern, a design, and you're in the middle of it, trapped in the geometry of guilt. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You make your way to the basement, a space you've avoided since the night everything ended. Too many shadows, too many old smells. You still haven't replaced the bulb in the far corner. It flickers every time the past gets too close. The first thing you notice isn't the cold, it's the sound. Tick, tick, tick. Rhythmic, precise, mechanical. You follow it like a breadcrumb trail down the wooden steps, behind the water heater, beneath the shelves of holiday junk and things you promised yourself you'd throw out one day, buried beneath a tarp you haven't touched since you moved in together. You lift it. There, nestled in dust, is a small black stopwatch. You pick it up. It fits your palm perfectly, too perfectly. The screen reads, "Urieriu 17 seconds." You press the side button. Nothing. Then you remember. This model never needed pressing. It was motion activated. It started the moment it was picked up, which means you flip it over. Scratched into the metal, back a spiral, of course. And below that, in etched lettering, you nearly missed David. Final trial run trial. The word hits harder than it should. You rewind the timeline in your head. You recheck your own lies. The scream, the fall, the alibi. 17 seconds. That's the gap. The pause between when he last spoke and when you made the call. That means someone timed it. Someone wanted you to know exactly how long it took you to decide to let him die. You drop the stopwatch like it burns, because now you remember what he said weeks before. I just want to know if you'd try to stop me. You thought it was dramatic, emotional, a play for pity, but maybe it was just experimental. You sit on the cold floor. There's something else beneath the top, a small black notebook, weathered, frayed at the corners. The last page reads, "If she lets go, start the clock. If she runs, stop it. You never ran, so it never stopped." It was never about the truth. It was about control. You pick up the stopwatch again. This time, it's ticking backwards. 0, 16, 0, 0, 15, 0. Just what sign? It's counting down. But to what you sprint upstairs, flashlight shaking in your hand. The hallway mirror new cracks. A full web now, splintered across your face like a spider waiting to pounce. You check your phone. The voicemail icon's back. You press play. How long did you wait before you pretended to cry David's voice? Not recorded, spoken, live. Your breath catches because the clock behind you has stopped ticking too. And the house feels like it's holding its breath. Everyone lies, especially the ones who wait 17 seconds before dialing 911. You wrote the letter, then burned it. But ashes don't lie. Someone taped them back together. You'd almost forgotten about the letter, the one you wrote the night after the trial. Longhand, 6 pages, unsent, unforgivable. You'd folded it, sealed it, and fed it to the fireplace like a guilty offering. You told yourself it was an act of closure, but it wasn't. It was an attempt at erasure. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You head for the fireplace, not to confess, but to check. And there it is, a small manila envelope, waiting for you on the hearthstone like a resurrection. Your name is on the front, scrawled in the same pen you used to write the letter. Inside ashes, gray and black and fine, except for one thing, they've been taped together. Tiny fragments, pieced like a jigsaw puzzle, letter by letter, and stapled to a plain sheet of paper is a message in all caps. You can burn the words but not the intent. Your hands shake. The letter was never meant to be seen, not even by you again. It was rage and confession and raw nerve inked into reality. You said things no court could prove, but that your body knew were true. You said, "I didn't mean to help him die, but I didn't mean to stop it either." You said it felt like relief. You said, "Sometimes I loved him more when he was afraid of me." And worst of all, you said, "If I had a second chance, I'd do the same thing again." Someone read this. Someone wanted you to read it again. And someone wants you to admit that burning it didn't make it go away. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You drop the ashes on the coffee table. They scatter like gray snow. The phone buzzes again. A new message. No words, just an image. The letter, fully reconstructed, photographed page by page. The tape holding the fragments visible like scar tissue. Below the image, we all have layers. Yours are just flammable. You turn toward the hallway mirror. The glass is missing now. Gone. In its place, a taped together version of your face. Photo prints layered over cracked cardboard. Pieced together from old driver's licenses. Social media screenshots. Surveillance stills. At the center of the collage, your eyes. But they're not yours. They're his, David's. watching you from within the version of yourself you've created. You step back, stumble. The table knocks over. Ash rises like dust, and for a moment it looks like smoke. You drop to your knees, clutch the photo, and cry, but not because of guilt, because of recognition. You're not being haunted, you're being rebuilt. Everyone lies, especially the ones who believe the fire always destroys. Sometimes it just rearranges. He knew what you were capable of. In his journal, "She'll do it if I push hard enough." Did he? You thought you burned the journals. There were 3 of them, leather-bound, weathered, scribbled with thoughts David never meant to share out loud. You remembered the smell of the paper as it blackened inky smoke and something bitter underneath. You tossed the ashes in the garden, under the hydrangeas he hated. But now one is back. You find it on your pillow. No dust, no burn marks, no explanation. You hesitate before touching it, because touching it means accepting that you didn't finish what you started. You open the cover. The first page is familiar. Spiral 1. She speaks in omissions. I love her most when she lies to herself. You flip forward. Every entry is dated, numbered, observational, cold, like he was documenting a subject. Spiral 18. She touches the knife drawer twice before picking a spoon. Spiral 21. She avoids the word accident, calls it a moment, like she's prepping a legal defense. Spiral 33. She says she forgives me. She never says for what. Spiral 41. She dreams of fire. Doesn't admit it, but I see it in the way she stares at the curtains. And then, Spiral base. She'll do it. If I push hard enough, she'll become the thing I see in the dark, and I'll finally be free. Your throat tightens. Was that what this was? An experiment? Did he stage everything down to the scream, the slip, the moment his weight shifted? Just enough. Was his fall a push or a test? Did he need to know if you would catch him? You remember that moment more clearly now. The way he looked at you. It wasn't fear. It was certainty. Like he was watching the final proof of a theory unfold in real time. And you passed. You slammed the journal shut. Because if it's true, it means you weren't his killer. You were his validation. You knew, but pretended you didn't. The window rattles. Wind howls through the chimney, even though it's not storming. The world is responding, echoing, whispering spiral-shaped secrets. You pace the room, heart pounding like a verdict being read. You check your email for the first time in days. One new message. No subject, no sender, just a single line. Are you ready to tell the real story? Attached a voice recording. You play it. His voice, calm, measured. You're not who you think you are. You're who I made you. Then a pause. Now finish what I started. Your stomach drops. Because it wasn't a suicide. It wasn't a murder. It was a transformation. He didn't want to destroy you. He wanted to create you. And you, blind, complicit, desperate for silence, you let him. The stopwatch, the photos, the mirrored face with his eyes. The spiral wasn't tracking his descent. It was charting yours. You look down at your hands. You're still holding the journal. And in the margin of the last page, in different handwriting, yours, you see something you don't remember writing. It wasn't his fall I feared. It was what I'd become afterward. It was never about the truth. It was about control. Everyone lies, especially the ones who think they're being honest for the first time. There's a witness you forgot. You thought he was asleep, but kids remember more than we want them to. You never told anyone about the boy. Not the detective, not the lawyers, not even David. You assumed he hadn't seen. that the wall was too thick, the night too late. You told yourself he was asleep upstairs, curled under blankets, lost in some innocent dream while everything below him unraveled. But now, you know better, because a letter arrives, folded in half, slipped under your front door like shame wrapped in paper, childlike handwriting, crooked, almost endearing. At the top, you drop this, you open it, a drawing, stick figures, a woman with red scribbles for hands, a man with X's for eyes, a box in the ground labeled Daddy, and above it all, a spiral. You sit down, hard, like the floor is the only thing still willing to hold you up. The boy's name was Elliot, David's son from before you met, 6 years old when he moved back in temporarily, just for a while. David said, just until things settled. You were careful, kind. You made cocoa, told stories, avoided too much truth. You thought he didn't understand. But kids don't need full sentences. They read tone. They see the space between words. They hear what adults leave out. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You go to the attic, drag out the old box of his things, the one you swore you'd donate, but never did. At the bottom, beneath drawings and plastic dinosaurs and one crumpled sock, you find a tiny recorder. You press play, silence, then a faint voice. Yours, David. Don't. Then his. You said you'd love me even like this. A crash, a thud, then nothing, except one more voice, small, shaky. Mommy. You shut it off. The sound keeps playing in your head. You thought you were alone that night. You weren't. You revisit your memory. Try to trace the layout. The boy's bedroom window looked out over the backyard, and that's where David fell. You rush outside. The hydrangeas rustle in the wind, but something else is there now. A toy truck, yellow, mud-caked, buried halfway into the earth near where the body landed. You dig it out. The wheel spins, catching on something. Taped to the underside a note, in the same crooked handwriting. He told me not to say anything, so I didn't. You drop the truck. You can't feel your hands. That means David spoke to him before it happened. That means he planned it down to the silence. He didn't just set you up. He set up his own son. Because the real story was never about justice. It was about how many people he could pull into his spiral before it ended. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You sit on the back steps, look at the yard. The gloves are there again, folded neatly. This time, they're child-sized. Everyone lies, especially the ones we assume are too young to understand. You buried the evidence in the wrong place. Someone's been digging, and it wasn't the police. The garden looks disturbed. At first, you think it's just your eyes playing tricks. Soft shadows stretching longer than they should in the pale morning light. But no, the soil is uneven, fresh, wet. The neat hydrangea rows have been sliced apart like surgical incisions. Dirt mounded, tools left. Someone's been digging, and they weren't looking for flowers. You step forward, slow, barefoot. You feel the mud pull at your heels like a warning. Near the center, exactly where David's body landed, there's a small wooden stake in the ground. You crouch, attached to it by twine is a tag, a single word scrawled across it. Almost. You don't touch it because you know who left it. Not the police, not Mel, not the boy. David, not living, not ghost, but David's design. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You checked the tools, a garden spade, rusted but recently used. A pair of red-handled shears you haven't seen in years. A child's plastic bucket filled with damp ash. You don't need to guess where the ash came from. It's the letter, the journal, the gloves, all reduced to powder, mixed with soil, buried where no one would expect to look, but exactly where someone wanted them to be found. Who? You spin back toward the house. The back door is open. Again, you rush inside. Every light is on. The hallway mirror is back, but now it isn't cracked. It's missing entirely. In its place is a hole. Not big, not gaping, but intentional. Just wide enough for an arm. Just dark enough to make you hesitate. And on the edge of the plaster, another spiral, drawn in what looks like soot. You lean closer. Something glimmers inside. You reach in, heart pounding like thunder beneath wet stone. Your fingers brush metal. You pull out a tin box, sealed with electrical tape. You tear it open. Inside, a flash drive, a pair of cufflinks, a broken photograph, a matchbook with one match left. The flash drive has one file. Confession again. Final. MP4. Your computer doesn't recognize it, but the TV does. You plug it in. The screen flickers. Then David's face. Not the face from the photos, not the body cam footage. This is something else. He's sitting in a chair, calm, framed by shadow. He looks straight into the camera. Hi, love. Your body goes still. If you're watching this, it means you couldn't stop yourself. He smiles. Not cruel, not warm, just final. You buried everything, but you didn't bury it deep enough. Cut to static. Cut back. Now he's holding a stopwatch. The same one, still ticking. 17 seconds. That's all it took, and I gave them to you. He leans forward, not to prove you'd kill me, but to see what you'd do with the silence. He taps the watch. The real crime wasn't what happened. It was what didn't. Cut. Screen. Black. Silence. Then one final sentence appears. You look down, but you never looked in. The screen goes dark. The flash drive ejects itself. The lights go out in the house. All at once, you're left in shadow. You breathe in the scent of ash and memory, and you realize something. Someone's been digging, and not just in the garden, in you. It was never about the truth. It was about control. Everyone lies, especially the ones who think they're the only ones hiding something. The eyes don't belong to him. You've been haunted all this time by the wrong pair of eyes. The flashlight clicks on with a dying wheeze. You move through the house slowly now, not like you're avoiding something, but like you're finally ready to find it. Because it's not David you've been hiding from. Not the corpse, not the fall, not even the confession you never gave. It's the eyes, the ones in the photographs, in the mirror, in your dreams. You thought they were his, but now you know better. You walk back to the living room. The spiral is drawn on the floor in ash. Around it, the fragments of everything you've buried, photo pieces, burned journal shreds, a single cufflink, half melted. You kneel in the center and close your eyes, and there they are again. Those eyes, watching, unblinking, accusing. But something's different now. You study them, not just the color, not just the gaze, the shape, the spacing, the tension in the brow. These aren't his eyes. They're yours. You freeze. It wasn't David haunting you. It was the version of yourself he left behind. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You remember the last photo he took of you before the fall. He'd said you looked dangerous in the right light. You thought it was flirtation, but maybe it was prophecy. You stand and walk to the bathroom mirror. No spiral this time, just your face. But something clicks into place as you look at it, the tilt of the chin, the tightness around the lips, the way your pupils hold still, almost too still. You were the last thing he saw, and you were the one who turned away, because that's when it started, didn't it? Not the death, the becoming. David didn't break you. He revealed you. It was never about the truth. It was about control. And control, you're starting to understand, was the point. All the clues, the voicemail, the gloves, the taped letters, the spirals. He wasn't tormenting you from beyond. He was reminding you, this is who you are now. You pull the flash drive from your pocket, the one labeled final. You smash it against the sink. It splinters, cracks. A shard of plastic lodges in your palm. You let it bleed because you need to feel something real. You bandage your hand, walk to the front door. Outside, the air is too still. No sirens, no rain. Just the hum of the house behind you, like it's waiting to be closed for good. You stand in the yard, the flowers swaying like they know something you don't. And then you see it, in the neighbor's window, Mrs. Denby, watching. She isn't holding a camera this time, just staring, blank, motionless. But her eyes, they're yours. You blink. Look again. She's gone. You rush back inside, slam the door, every lock engaging like a heartbeat. The house is still again. You catch your reflection in the hallway mirror, reassembled. No cracks, but the spiral is etched into your iris. You lean close and whisper, I see you. Not to David, not to the past, to yourself. Because you finally understand, you weren't haunted, you were hiding. And now the only question left is from what everyone lies, especially the ones who believe their eyes are still their own. What you remember isn't what happened. Truth isn't what you did. It's what you've convinced yourself you didn't. You sit alone in the kitchen. The light above you flickers, not broken, just uncertain, like it's trying to decide whether it wants to keep showing you the truth. Your phone is silent now. No voicemails, no photos, no whispers bleeding through the static. But that doesn't mean it's over. It just means the spiral has finally closed. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You unrolled the blueprint David once kept in the back of his journal, a diagram you hadn't looked at since you first found it last week, tucked between spirals and muttered theories. It isn't of a house, it's of you, your days, your habits, your lies, labeled like an architect would label walls. Denkarchu 45. Checks phone for messages and 10. Stares at old voicemail thread. Tatway Furiru deletes recording, restores it again. Unread, opens drawer, touches gloves, closes it, opens it again and nudge, writes new version of memory. Each line, a timestamp. Each timestamp, a truth you didn't write. He was watching, not just before he died. Before you knew you were watching yourself. You look over at the clock on the oven, 3:17. Of course, it's always 3:17. Time loops, like memory, like guilt. You stand, walk back to the hallway mirror, no cracks now, just glass, smooth, perfect, too perfect, because the person staring back isn't you, not quite. It's a version of you, more composed, eyes calmer, mouth not quivering. It's the you that existed before the spiral started turning, and she doesn't recognize you anymore. You lean closer, the surface fogs as you breathe, and on the fog, a fingerprint appears, not yours, his, one last mark, a goodbye, or a warning. You speak aloud, not for him, not for anyone just to say it. I let it happen, and with that, something inside you collapses, not like a structure falling, more like a lock clicking open. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You don't pick up the gloves again. You don't rewatch the footage. You don't call Mel. Because now you understand something David never had the courage to say out loud. The lie wasn't what you told the police. The lie was what you told yourself. That you didn't know. That it wasn't inevitable. That you were innocent. You weren't. You just got there first. Everyone lies. But the ones who survive, they lie best. And now, finally, the house is quiet. Not peaceful, just finished. The spiral has stopped turning now. Not because the story is over. Stories like this don't end. They sink quietly into the parts of us that don't speak much anymore. The places we keep behind locked doors, behind cracked mirrors, behind names we don't say, unless we're whispering them to ourselves at 3:17 a.m. Outside, the world keeps going. Cars pass by, street lights blink. Somewhere, someone forgets something important, and someone else pretends they never noticed. But here, in this house, silence finally holds. You breathe in, and it doesn't feel like drowning anymore. You don't know if David forgave you. You don't know if Elliot will ever remember the truth the way you need him to. But you know this. You looked in the mirror and didn't look away. That matters. Maybe the eyes that haunted you weren't meant to accuse. Maybe they were meant to remind, not of what you did, but of who you could still become. If you stopped lying long enough to remember what honesty sounds like. It sounds like your voice in an empty kitchen. It sounds like footsteps you don't chase anymore. It sounds like your name, spoken without flinching. So sleep now, if you can. Not because you're safe, not because it's over, but because rest is rebellion in a world built on secrets. And if the eyes return tonight, let them. Let them watch. Let them see who you really are now. After all, they were never David's, were they? They were yours, waiting for you to open them. End of script. Sleep well and watch your back.